Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sampson, Jim Jones for Veterans in Politics. Today we have Amber Johnson, who is a litigant in Clark County Family Court. And Ms. Johnson has been in the Clark County Family Court for 10 years. Makes you think that you want to hire her or something. She should punch a clock, make some money or something. 11 years now and 7 judges later, and she's still there. But we're going to have her explain her family court saga. But the thing about it is that one of the abusive judges is Rhonda Forsberg, who is, a candidate for Nevada's Court of Appeals, which I think is ironic. But anyways, we'll talk about that a little bit. Jim, you have any rants?
No, not really, other than...
Okay, very good.
Yep. Seriously. No, I really don't. I was just going to say something about family court, but we can go through it. Well, I think what we were talking about a little bit before we came on air with Forsberg, it's interesting because in my opinion, and I'm typically not one of those types that will group everybody together and say all. So I'm not going to say all, but I'm going to say, in my opinion, probably about 90% family court judges are like, that whole system is so convoluted. So I'm not exactly sure why we should be promoting anybody that's a judge in family court to oversee other judges. Yeah. It seems kind of like an oxymoron to me. I think family court needs to get its act together. And one of the ways to do it is, I'm not saying 95% of all judges in family court are bad. Mm-hmm. What I am saying, and Steve, you and I have seen this a lot, other family court judges see peers doing things that they should not be doing, and they let it go. Mm-hmm. And they just go, oh, the disciplinary commission will take care of it. We all know that's not going to happen. They should know that by now. So I think judges in family court need to start doing some peer pressure and clean some of that up so that some of these judges would deserve to go to a higher level. But in my opinion, I don't think Forsberg is one of them.
Yeah, we got rid of some of them in the last election cycle.
We did.
And so far, the replacements are being pretty good.
Yeah.
But we still have a lot to go, like Chuck Hoskins, Matthew Harder, Bryce Duckworth, a little squeaky ducky. They got to go as well. Maybe Vincent Ochoa, but he's staying quiet.
Yeah.
Should, but, they got to go as well.
Yeah.
We should replace them with some women judges that know exactly what the law is and that have empathy and compassion and fair and balance.
Yeah.
They did receive, I can't remember her name, but one of the Baha'i faith, which believes in just unity and harmony and fairness and education. And I think she's going to be great for the family court. So,
sure.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Johnson, what brings you here today?
You. So I'm here.
Tell me about your situation. Oh, you know what? Give us a bio first.
Well, my name is Amber. I'm a mother of 2. I have a son that is 17, almost 18, and a 3-year-old.
Oh, you don't look like you have a 18-year-old child.
Almost 18. No. And so I've been in the family court off and on really since 2006, but it really kicked up and has been nonstop in 2011. It's been a very difficult journey, one where at first I had representation, then due to politics or things changes that happen at a trial, one withdrew because they knew what was planned for that situation.
You said that you've been in the family court system until 2006 and it didn't kick up till 2011. Yeah. That's a lot of years in between those.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we initially did it when my son's father sued for full custody with really no merit. And then we mediated that out. And then another incident happened and he sued for custody. He made accusations towards me. It was a very extensive time, and things didn't really go as they should. But when you represent yourself at a trial, it was the beginning of the end. So it was a big snowball after that of me trying to get afloat.
Well, did you know, according to the Nevada revised statutes, that the family court's supposed to take 6 months from start to finish?
Yes, I knew it, but I recently had a particular person in my case, a judge, question why this has gone on really so long. Mm-hmm. But instead of really ever giving a trial, which I've been asking for since 2000, not since 2014, and I asked for one in 2018. Mm-hmm. Forsberg kind of shut that down. I didn't agree with how it was handled. And eventually Judge Mercer overturned her awarding fees, and Judge Forsberg never gave a prevailing party and why they were prevailing. So things did change, but it was years of fighting.
Well, before we get to Judge Forsberg, once you name the 7 judges that you've had, mm-hmm. and how they affected your case.
Wow. Well, once in family court, my first judge was Judge Tuden. That was in
Robert
Tuden. It was his first time kind of being in the family court, is my understanding. And our hearing was our first one was in December of 2011. Then he kind of established what he expected for trial and what would be done. And I did meet those qualifications. There was a lot of statements that obviously can be made to say you didn't. But at the end of the day at trial, it proved I did, and those were not. Mm-hmm. But yet there was no accountability of an attorney lying. There's never accountability, it seems. But anyways, so during that time, I ended up not having counsel. They switched to a chief judge. That judge dismissed the cap attorney, dismissed anyone that could help me during that time, and then said, I'm changing what we were discussing today in court.
Isn't it crazy? You go from one judge to the next.
That doesn't even
and then the other judge, you have this judge, and this judge says X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And then you have this judge, and this judge goes Z, Y, and X. Mm-hmm. Change everything the first judge does. And then the other, and then the judges keep changing each other's ruling and orders.
Yeah.
And please continue.
It's very important to have self-care and a good support system and a level head to keep reading and educating yourself, because for me, it's very much a battle when someone gives you one direction and then the next one says, well, that's obscene. Why, do this. And you're like, yeah, I agreed it was, but it's just constantly changing the expectations on you, and you don't know up from down. It's almost like gaslight. It's just said to exhaust you, I feel like, or I think that's why you shouldn't switch judges so often, or there should be an extensive review. Mercer, one of the things I respected about her when she first came on was she went back and really studied the case.
Okay, let's get back to the second judge. Who's the second judge?
The second judge was Judge Hardcastle. That's the one that came in. Yes, he's the one that came in and sat at my trial. No, Gerald. Okay. And he sat in at my trial, which is in 2012, June. And that's the one where we were to discuss the full psych assessment that I had done. That was very extensive, 6 months, very expensive. Went back to my childhood, all my medical HIPAA releases, anything they could use against you, interviewing my ex-husband, everything. And so I did it all, and I came back with no psychosis. Child should be with mom, but they still changed custody to father. He said he didn't respect the doctor.
Let me stop you right there. And that's another crazy thing.
Yeah.
You have judges that go and get these third-party entities.
I was forced anyway.
To give them some type of insight so they can make a decision, and then they go back against what that third-party entity says. Like if you had
and they picked the therapist. I didn't have a say.
Point. Question: Did
they pick it? I don't have a say.
So the judge picked the therapist. You did the 6 months. The attorney,
the opposing counsel picked it.
Oh, okay. And
so I was really scared. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and then go against what the expert says.
Well, they said this is what
you spend all this money and put all this time and energy,
then dismiss him, and I had to pay for him to come there and
that
testify.
Is absolutely ludicrous. That's ludicrous.
Yes. So, and, you know, and they'll pick tidbits from it, but for the most part, it was a very good psych assessment, you know, but they did threaten me that it would be good for 10 years and all this stuff. So it was very scary. I took a lot of tests the FBI takes, and it was very extensive. So anyways, from that, I went to Judge Potter.
William Potter.
Yes. And how that originated was I basically appealed Hardcastle's decision for the trial. And I said, I disagree. And I was taking it to the Supreme Court. When I hire the attorneys, we first go through where you meet with like Judge Gaston, who I had to settle it, like a settlement conference, instead of going all the way up. Well, I agreed to it because it was like, oh, we'll have joint, and you just have to complete a parenting class at UNLV with a particular person, and then you'll have joint, like in some therapy with your son. Well, it was a setup. It was a setup for this particular person who seemed definitely biased because she ignored all my evidence to refute any ex parte communications that she had once she was assigned parent coordinator. But anyway, she had this class. She taught everything. Like in high conflict, 99% of the time, someone suffers from psychosis. I've had 2 psych assessments, no psychosis, but yet the father's never been assessed. Every judge shuts it down.
And this one-sided thing is ridiculous too.
But he's protected when there's a psychosis there, and there's a lot of violations of things he's not ever sanctioned or held accountable for. And they say I do things I don't do, and it's just a lot of punishment and abuse. It's just, so you talk to people, but you hear it's much worse. It's not just me. So that's gives you comfort, but also frustrates the heck out of me.
Because it's your children is what you're fighting.
This is my
for.
kid's life.
Right. And
how they portray, you know, when those judges can say whatever, attorneys can say whatever they want. If they don't look at the actual evidence and they don't enter it into evidence and they sabotage you, it is what it is, you know. So I ended up representing myself after a while because you lose trust in attorneys because it seems they intentionally tank your case. And that happened to me.
I want to keep on to the judges, and I want to go find out how many attorneys you have. But
so then I moved to Judge Potter.
He's number what?
So 4.
Okay.
He's basically because I had Robert Gaston, the Supreme Court one.
Yeah.
So I went through the mediation. Margaret Pickard, she then appointed herself special master, which you can't do. So I had filed a complaint.
Who's now a family court judge?
Yeah. So I'm really going on an uphill battle. So anyways, she completely, a lot of things happened wrong with her. But anyways, so I had Potter. Potter was very abusive to me. I remember one time when we had trial in 2014, he yelled at me on the stand because I was asked a compound question, and which
is against the judicial canon.
Yes. And I said to him, I can't answer it that way because it's not a yes or no.
Well, let me stop you right there on Potter. Do you know he went before the Nevada Judicial Disciplinary Commission that was found and was sanctioned? And one of the things was he was yelling at litigants and attorneys.
Yeah.
So he got penalized for that.
He screamed and literally said, "Are you doubling down on your children's life? He wanted me to gamble on my children's life, that whatever it was that I was stating was truth." And I was just sitting there like, I'm sorry, I'm just correcting you. You know, I was always very calm.
Right.
But the representation of me was always allowed to be that I was not who I am.
Right.
But anyone that knows me, any employer would testify my psych assessment. They talk to everyone. I'm who I say I am, not what's been written about me. So anyways, so Potter, I had one of the biggest incidents that happened with him was my son's father had filed a fake runaway report, kidnapping, but he had the child in his care. And
that's incredible. And there was no perjury charges against him?
No, and he had filed there was like a CPS report that was never investigated or sent over to them or anything for abuse. My son had ran away. But anyways, so he brought me before Potter to say I'd kidnapped my son, which could not have happened. He lived in a high-rise, cameras everywhere. My son was very little, and he walked up Sahara to the Palace Station and got a ride with a hooker and a Uber driver to my house at 3 a.m.
How old was your
12, 11. Yeah, from Las Vegas Boulevard. So it was very scary. And he didn't know my number because he wasn't allowed to contact me. It was very alienating.
He knew your address?
But he knew he could tell him how to get to my house. He didn't know my address. So at 3 a.m., I get a knock on the door. So anyways, I get accused of kidnapping. He gets the child back. I'm told, that despite what had physically happened, I have to return him. And there was never an investigation.
Let me get back to the 12-year-old with the Uber. You saying that there was a prostitute and there was
she came to my house, an adult that came to my house at 3 a.m.
Because a 12-year-old can't get an Uber.
No, so she rode with him or something. Because the next day I got a call from the guy that she works for, like, why are you contacting this person? But I give him my dad's number. So anyways, so he got the call. But anyway, so this was brought before Potter. Nothing could be proven. They weren't held in contempt for lying about kidnapping, that they didn't have, nothing was done. And then Fran had admitted to taking the child to therapy, which she couldn't do, violating joint legal. Nothing was done. He said, I probably should sanction you. But
this is Potter.
This is Potter, but he was always very aggressive. And then I had Judge Dan yell still for a minute.
Potter needed a hug. That's all.
Yeah. Sometimes he seems wonderful. I watch a lot of videos.
He had a hug.
We all have bad days, I guess, or what politics. So then I had Judge Still.
Diane Still.
Yes. That was after I had filed my 2018 motion for a trial. That was delayed for like a year. I went through Still and Nancy Becker, people who would say if my son had a missing assignment, he couldn't talk to me for a day, for a week.
What are using a child as a sword for? That's against Code of Ethics and NRS, actually.
Yeah, and then they would say, just the worst thing. So he couldn't communicate with me. They'd say, Mom has to, but I would say I never can reach my son. So how can I be expected to help him with his homework if I can't even talk to him? So anyways, so that went on, and all the judges kind of loved that. Forsberg especially, she pretty much made me accountable for his education, yet I only had my son 1 day a week. And I couldn't communicate with him on any other days. I was supposed to, but it never happened. So then my son got an attorney assigned to him.
Who's that attorney?
Dr. or Attorney Lynn Conant, who I think helps out it. She came out of retirement. She was retired.
Ichi Conan? Is her name?
Yeah, she's good.
Okay. So, all right, keep going.
So then I currently have Judge Mercer and Judge Ochoa, but that's in another case.
Mercer, is it Michelle Mercer?
Michelle Mercer.
Okay.
And she was the one that in the beginning when she came in, she really looked at the entire case kind of. It seemed like she tried to do her best. Right. Versus when you go between so many judges, a lot of times you're not supposed to rediscuss things. And I would get repunished by the new judge for things that were not Munchausen, but pre-McMonagall, which is once you've discussed them, tried them, you can't bring them back up. And that's what would happen constantly.
But aren't you trying to get the new judge up to speed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she went through it, but you couldn't bring past allegations back up. You couldn't, if things were resolved, unless you saw an error with them, I guess. So she ended up overturning things, and things looked to go in the right direction, and then something just happened. Okay. She kind of flipped. Yeah.
Okay. And then you have Vincent Ochoa?
Vincent Ochoa. That's just in a separate case. But he's, for the most part, I haven't had a lot of dealings with him. So. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So how many judges are we at right now?
Well, I guess I added 2 more, so 9 plus, so 10-ish in my life.
Covered all the judges?
Yes. Yes, I think so.
So what about all the attorneys you've had? It's got to be financially grueling as well.
It is. So I've had a lot of attorneys. I kind of learned along the way. But I started out with, what was her name? Leslie something. Who was she with? Pecos Law Group. Leslie Cohn, I think. Yeah.
Who's a current assemblywoman, by the way.
Okay. And then I had switched to Attorney Marshall Willick's office.
Oh my God. A pathetic
But I
group.
quickly could not afford that.
In my opinion,
I like some of his studies and stuff, and then, his history.
Well, in my opinion, he rapes clients financially.
Yeah.
Oh, I was in a month and a half. That's kind of what cost me.
People still use them. I just don't understand that. It's like begging for punishment.
Right.
So I had, after him, I hired Steinberg.
Diagnostic?
Steinberg, let's see, Ford and Friedman for my appeal for my Supreme Court. But
how did that go?
Well, we ended up settling it, and I thought everything was going good, but it was quickly a setup to just end up back in court. Once we got the parent coordinator, it was just litigation after litigation. There was no reduction in conflict. It actually became quite expensive. How much was the parent coordinator you had to pay out of pocket? Very expensive, because the father would email her every day. Instead of emailing me, she was just getting direct, You think he deliberately did that to drive up costs? Drive up costs and also bias her, but she wasn't supposed to accept those communications. So. And why did she? Why didn't you immediately get rid of her at that time? I couldn't, because you have to go through the court. So then she assigned herself special master, which then of course she did. She was able to file orders against me, do anything she wanted, any allegation. If I submitted video proof, I recorded every exchange, and I still have all those. But I would get accused of acting up, and I never did. So, but there was no accountability. And then I lost custody because I'd registered my kid in school, but I was asked to. In the meeting with my father. So you had conflicting orders? So I was told to do things, but then I'd go to court and get smacked on the hand for it. That seems to be a common occurrence in family court, conflicting orders. So, but none of that mattered. And you can only keep fighting so much. So then it just snowballs. You just keep getting delayed. So what's your case now? It's not in a great place. The last thing that happened, there was a lot of attorney blatantly lying. And so I contacted the state bar. Well, I knew the judge is supposed to handle any misconduct by attorneys. But she still deferred it to the state bar, which then I contacted, and I received their letter saying, no, this needs to be handled by your judge. And she ended up making an order and sealing my case under the wrong law that was provided to her by opposing counsel, and making an order without considering all of the facts that I had asked her to please consider. When you first filed for custody of your kids, how old were they? I never had to file. So I was first sued when my son was 6 weeks old. And I was going into he was going into emergency surgery, and the father wanted no part of it. But I was served papers the night before the surgery. Oh wow! Mm-hmm. So, and you think that before surgery you're supposed to be calm, cool, and collective. That's what happened. Because it's a little baby, nervous, right? Yeah. So how old are your children now? 17, going on 18, and 3. She just turned 3. That is crazy. They're both great kids. Just my son's, unfortunately, I think had some trauma bonding or something. Your son was 3 weeks old. 6 weeks. 6 weeks old when your case was first filed. And now he's 17. We did have a break for a little bit between maybe a 2-year break. But then something had happened. Once that situation was resolved to their liking, the father then sued me for custody. So we've been battling for a while. So what happened that he would sue you for custody? Or what did he allege? Well, there was just an allegation that something had happened that was not, could be harmful to a child. And, it bit me in my butt. So you imagine if you took all that time and money, what you could have done with that, putting your kids' education. And most importantly, not put your kids through conflict. I mean, the hardest thing for me was my son was begging for me to fight for him. I wasn't doing it for any reason because I believe in people having a relationship with both of their parents. But unfortunately, if one person prefers conflict, there's nothing you can do. And if they have the funds to do it, or if they have an axe to grind, or their attorney, they just started a fire. Are you still in Forsberg's courtroom? No, thank goodness. and Mercer overturned her decision. I had a bunch of stuff specifically on what had happened, but
you want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, I guess I can. Let's see. Well, I don't agree in the sealing of things. I don't know if you're familiar with them trying to close the family court cases and then passing it, but I do think that that's something they should definitely not do.
I would like to take credit of that. They're trying to seal cases and keep them all closed because our organization's been exposing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly those are closed cases when we show up. Yeah. Steve shows up in particular, the bailiff is like, sorry, Steve, closed case.
Case closed. And then we go get the video and put it on YouTube and have thousands of people watch it instead of one or two people sitting in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Makes lots of sense to me. Good calls.
So you had mentioned one thing to me that I did really want to touch on. When it comes to family court, and because of the costs and how these things keep getting drawn out, and litigants are just getting drained, their funds are just getting drained constantly. So when they do defend themselves or act as their own attorney, then like you have mentioned something to me, like you think that maybe if a judge realizes that what you're saying isn't technically correct, like why can't the judge give you a little bit of advice on that or correct you rather than just ignoring everything you just said?
And saying you're expected to know what opposing counsel knows. If you can't afford it, and let's just say we steal these records, people can't go and pull and see examples of what to do or not to do. You lose the education and the transparency to be held accountable. But, these judges, I think, to act in a child's best interest, if someone is representing themselves, should still be, at the end of the day, making sure the best interest is chosen. And if, one party cannot afford that and they can't be corrected or guided, then it leaves them at a disadvantage. And maybe it's not what's best.
Yeah, because in that specific example, you worded it just right, because in the best interest of the child, which is the rationale that most family court judges use as why they're given so much discretion, and they always use the best case of the child. But not being, and then so, because I actually asked a judge why they don't give advice, and they say they do sometimes, but then they also say that like ignorance of the law is not a defense. Mm-hmm. So something has to give there, where I think like part of it is just the time frame that's involved. But like, so you've been involved in the family court system this long, but how many decisions were actually made? Were you guys coming to a conclusion and then the case starting up again? Is what I'm saying. So
I basically had two trials, one in 2014 and one in 2012. After that, we had a special master, so she kind of just made a lot of orders, so we'd be back at court all the time. Decisions would change based on her requests. And then she was finally dismissed by Judge Potter when it was realized it wasn't beneficial to our case. So after that, we had a break from 14 to 18, which was nice and showed that the conflict would kind of go away. And then in 18, my son was doing very bad in school and had asked me. So that's what's been delayed to now. Like since 18 to now, we've been doing that journey. Yeah. But I was denied a hearing.
So since Rhonda Forsberg is up trying to be a appellate court judge, which is a higher position than a district court judge in the family division, what would you tell voters about her character, since you've personally had dealings with her? what would you tell voters, why they should not vote for this person? What would you say to them?
I don't believe she has behaved in accordance with carrying out her judicial duties required by each of the rules covered. She has, in my opinion, she has violated judicial rules that apply to judges as Rule 1.1, compliance with law. Rule 1.2, promoting confidence in the judiciary. Rule 2.2, impartiality and fairness. 2.3, bias, prejudice, and harassment. 2.5, competence, diligence, and cooperation. 2.6, ensuring the right to be heard. 2.8, decorum, demeanor, and communication with jurors, like the screaming. 2.9, ex parte communications. And 2.15, responding to judicial and lawyer misconduct.
Well, you think that those will get her tossed off the bench, not get promoted to a higher position. Have you filed a judicial disciplinary complaint against her based on those?
Uh-uh.
Why not?
Because I didn't really know. And I filed so many complaints in the past where there's been violations, and it's almost like it's like the people that are reviewing it are the people that they're all buddies. It's just a network.
So if I help you file, would you supply evidence for each of those?
Yes.
And you have the evidence for those?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll help you file a complaint against her.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I have the rules listed for each of the types of situations, but, it's a lot.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you would like to? Do we get everything out? Do you have something else you'd like to
Well, I was, here to help with, just try to be transparent with what I've gone through in the system. I don't know that everyone has the wherewithal. And I think the intent is there has to be accountability across the board. And, you hear, well, sometimes it's politics, when you get attorneys and the outcome turns out,
Now, when it comes to judges, it's not just politics, it's my life.
It's everything. Yeah. And it's your life. And it impacts a person. I think at the end of the day, conflict is what's the worst thing for a child. And I think right now, what I've experienced is it's about who wins and loses in court. It's not about what's best for the child. And I really think there needs to, be some balance and not circumventing the system. I've had fake TPOs and stuff to keep my children from me.
Jim, you have anything else?
No, other than just thank you for coming on and get with Steve on those.
Yes.
And we'll try to figure something out there. And just, sorry you have to go through that, but thanks for keeping going rather than just giving up.
Yeah.
And coming on, because talking about situations like this, even though you're handling it very well and you have a very calm demeanor on the outside, but when a mother is dealing with issues with their kids, it's a very emotional, and it's kind of tough for some mothers to be willing to express that publicly. So, yeah, I have a lot of respect for you being willing to do that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, Ms. Johnson,
and these are just my opinions, but I do have the facts on why.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Mark is going to zoom in on you, and you could talk about, briefly why. How does corruption run wild in the family court, and maybe try to get litigants to avoid the family court saga. And maybe you want to discuss Judge Forsberg and why people shouldn't vote for her in this upcoming election. And if you want to give any of a name or your contact information, you could do that as well. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, probably not. We'll keep it simple.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Amber, and I'm here today to discuss my journey through the family court. It's been over 11 years, 7 to 10 judges. Mostly to discuss Judge Rhonda Forsberg, who is, running for the Supreme Court. But Appellate Court, I'm sorry. But, given my experience and my case, I do believe that there were many violations of judicial rules. And I don't think she's performed in accordance with these rules, and I don't think she's qualified based on my proceedings and my experience.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Quite welcome. Thank you, Jim. Folks, that's Amber Johnson's talking about her rough journey through the family court system for the past, 11 years and 7 judges later, and still have not received an absolute resolution towards it. And we've been dealing with the family court system on a permanent basis since 2016. And we have seen a lot of tragedies within the family court system. And we've tried to change that by proposing new laws, by exposing the corrupt family court judges, by getting them off the bench, by introducing different opinions and how litigants could, smooth on by the family court system, but it's never that way. We're going to have a book coming up. Hopefully it'll be published by the end of this year. And it's how to maneuver through the Clark County family court system. And it tells you A to Z, even explains on how to file complaints against judges, how to get your videos, how to do all these things that is never told to a litigant, especially a litigant that's going through the family court system in proper person. And lawyers don't really want to tell litigants what they could do. Some lawyers, not all, don't want to educate the litigants neither, because they want to keep milking these litigants for their money while they're going through their horror of divorce, getting their children, seeing their children, and family court. Let me just be honest. Divorce and losing your children is a civil death. It's a civil death, especially when you lose it permanently, when a judge removes your child based on their belief of your performance, and they do the when they remove your child. And Jim, help me with that.
They remove your child.
Relocation, termination of parental rights, which I truly believe there should be jury boxes in the family courtroom, or at least a tribunal. One person should not have so much power to remove your child from you. I think it's devastating. And we really need to pay attention. We really need to expose these things. And I invite any and all litigants, if they have their story they want to tell, reach out to us and we'll gladly put you on. If any litigants that are uneducated in this procedure, I say Google Veterans in Politics and Family Court. We have a YouTube channel. We have thousands of court videos on there, and you're welcome to go and watch them. And educate yourself. Before you get into this matter of family court, educate yourself. And I tell litigants, I say, you know what, work it out, mediate it, get a paralegal, which is a fraction of an attorney, to write it up, file it with the court system, and move on with your life. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. And we really need to move on with this family court. They grew it by 6 more additional judges within the past couple of years. And I did predict that years before it even happened, that they wanted to grow government in the family court. And that's exactly what they do. And the reason why they do that is because they keep rehashing these cases over and over and over again. I mean, look at this litigant, Amber Johnson. Come on. 11 years, 7 judges. This is absolutely asinine. And I advise anybody to have the heart and strength and the wherewithal to fight this corrupt system and make it better for a generation to continue. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jones for Veterans in Politics. Until next time.